I used to live for a little while in a little village just outside of Banbury, and it was like a classic English countryside village. And one of the little lanes that it had stone cottages in it. I mean, one of the little cottages, there's a little old woman who lived there who'd moved down from Liverpool when the bombing during the Second World War had got a bit sort of risky and people were moving out of the city. She'd moved to this countryside village, and she'd lived there ever since. And she was old enough to remember like the Zeppelin raids in the First World War, so she had a sort of a great deal of wisdom with her and a bit of like spirit about her, a bit of mischief. And she used to tell me when I was getting like a bit run down, I was probably working too hard at the time or something, or she said, make sure you keep warm, make sure you keep warm. So I'm thinking about this lady Emmy, when I'm walking around today, because I go into grocers, the little grocers up the road here, and there's a Cuban guy who works behind, and every time I walk into the grocers, he's standing there. It's really cold, it's really cold. And I said, well, why don't you shut the door? And he's, oh, we have to have it open. So I thought this was something like, you know, in the big cities and in the big superstores, they leave the doors open as kind of to remove one psychological barrier for people who may come into their shop. So I thought it was like a marketing thing. So I said to him, why don't you shut the door one day? We had this conversation, why don't you shut the door? Like, that's what they were invented for, so that people can open and shut them as they come in. And he said, oh no, we have to, but then they'll touch it, and it's all the corona. I was like, what? They've got a Greek girl working there, a Cuban guy, and some other people, maybe Eastern European people working there. And every time there's someone different on, and they're always shivering away, and they look like forlorn, and you know they have to wear masks, and they're shivering away because. So I said to them, you know, well, that seems really logical. You know, you got to like make yourself cold so you don't catch a cold. Anyway, so that's the kind of logic they're ignoring. But today I went past and happily they had the door shut. So I don't know if they were being naughty and just got fed up with it. But apparently some kind of legal or some sort of dictate has come down from somewhere, whether it's from their boss or from the law. So they were in December in a freezing cold. They were dealing with the door being open. I've also seen recently in the past couple of days. A guy I know was walking through a room and the woman had all the doors and windows open. And following on from this, like the government said, like Granny has to sit near an open window on Christmas Day. It's just insane. So this lady in the place where I work had opened all the doors and windows, and someone who's working with me walked through, and he said she ran out of the room because she was scared of him. So we've now got human beings like actually running away from one another. That's kind of a first. We've had this whole 2 meter thing, so that was kind of shocking. But one last little story I'll tell you is from Saturdays when we were out in Bond Square, and people come up to you and they're listening to your views, and there's like it happened a couple of times, but one with Oxford students, and they said to you, what, are you an anti-masker then? And I don't like being pigeonholed. The reason why I sometimes go out in Bond Square and talk to people, and the reason why I make these videos and why people like me think this way is not to do with masks, but they're like, are you an anti-masker? That's not really the point. The point is like things about bodily autonomy and the safety of our selves and the society and people in the society as we go forward. So I said to her, no, I'm not like I said, I don't like to be called out. I said, I think of it more as like being pro-normal, like pro-face. I mean, because they're the ones who are doing something abnormal. They're imposing what they consider to be medical measure without any proof of them working. There's no proof that lockdown works. There's no proof that masks work. So I said to her, are you an anti-fascist? Because they're the ones who are getting us to cover up. It's like almost like the orthodoxy, the normality is, or the wording of these things, like if you, it's creating almost like a sense that the normal people wear masks, and a similar false dichotomy is being created between those people who don't want to inject an unproven, untested, indemnified vaccine that's got no liability into themselves. They're creating this false dichotomy that makes you an anti-vaxxer or anti-science, and it's just not the case. It's just like anybody who knows anything about or even looks at the literature or that the government has presented, that it's like it can endanger your fertility, it can endanger, well, it's not proven that it couldn't endanger your fertility is the best way of putting it, and there's no long-term trials about it. So why would you take a risk with your health with a vaccine which only, even if you required it, would according to the manufacturers, would give you a 90% success rate off a very small group of people that they run in their trials, compared to the millions that they're intending to roll it out for, and it's got no proof of whether it will interact with medication, and so on. There's so many questions about it, but there's just no long-term trials. How can there be when it's only been around for a couple of months? And the opposite is that, or the alternative is not to take a vaccine or any forced medication for a virus that has an infinitesimally small chance of killing you if you're a healthy person, particularly if you're a healthy person under 60 or 70. So the odds just seem ridiculous. But anyway, that's the kind of world we're living in. It's starting to look a lot like madness. Take care.